إلهي قد أتيت إلى رحابك مستجيرا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Proceed. Okay, we're going for an interesting 2 days. And just to summarize what we've done in the past 2 days, so we could end today on revelation and prophethood, okay? What we did, we went through uncomfortable questions. Went through uncomfortable questions, and we realized that we can't answer all of the questions because there could be an infinite number of answers. So what we did, we changed the paradigm, and we said we'll bring everyone to Tawheed, which is following this process, which is called GORAP, okay? And we know GORAP stands for God's existence, His oneness, revelation, and prophethood. But in order for GORAP to be effective, we have to use the number one important thing, which is called, sisters? Initiation, which is the bridge, okay? Initiation, which is the bridge between any question and Tawheed. So this is the summary. So, we said in the beginning that you have an infinite number of questions, you can't answer all of them. Our new process was GORAP. We went through the deconstruction phase, where we realized that actually, how are we going to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The only way to do that is to link directly to Allah and His Messenger, which is the GORAP approach. As we said, God's existence, oneness, revelation, and prophethood. And we said initiation is the bridge between any question and Tawheed. And this is why we understood that initiation is so important, because it filters out insincere people, and it also takes any question, even if we don't know the topic, and links it to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And initiation is very simple. The main part of initiation is essentially the concept. And the concept is, who can remember, put your hand up. Hands. Wait, don't speak while you're raising your hand. What's the point? Hands. What is that? Is that half a hand? Yeah? You're not choosing shoes, sister, yeah? I don't know. Should I go Gucci or Prada, yeah? Yes, my Syrian brother.
In order to understand the question, you have to understand the concept of Islam.
In order for you to understand the answer, yes, good. So he's saying this amazing Syrian accent, yeah? In order to understand the answer, you have to understand the concept of Islam, you know? It's like Rocky Balboa, bro. So, in order, everyone concentrate, no whispering, so I've got very good ears, and I can hear that. Even that as well, don't let you go. In order for you
Is it black one as well? Use the black one or will
the black one won't work either. You know what? I accidentally left one in my pocket the other day, and I put it in my bag to bring it back. See? Alhamdulillah. Yeah? Be careful, I might still be heading
the bankers do the same thing. They take money with them to bring them back.
It's true, it's true. So, the concept was, in order to understand the answer, you have to understand the concept of Islam. Because when someone asks any question, whether it's about, why do you guys stone people to death? What's the matter with you, man? I say, wait a minute. You know drugs is forbidden in Islam. We don't get stoned. Get it?
Yeah.
Come on. You're supposed to laugh at that one.
I got it now.
So, you know what? What's your name, sir? John. Very good to see you, John. But you have to understand that Sharia law, Islamic law, is not a caricature. But in order for you to understand why we do things in Islam, you have to understand the concept of Islam. Do you have some time? And then that's the link. Any question you link it to Tawheed. Now they may say, you know what they may say? What are the problems again? They may demand yes or no. They may demand just a yes or no answer. But then you say, look, the answer is not yes or no, because does yes or no really represent your views on abortion? Yes or no? No, it's a nuanced discussion. If I ask you the question, what's your name? Yes or no? How many days in the week? Yes or no? The answer is the concept of Islam. And if you really want to engage with me, then you engage with the concept. What was the other contention? Crazy questions. If someone says, you know what, I heard you guys drink baby's blood, you're not going to say, well, that's interesting, but in order for you to understand the answer, you have to understand the concept of Islam. You're implying we do drink baby's blood, but we don't. So you just deny the crazy question. You say, no, of course we don't drink baby's blood, but in order for you to understand anything about Islam, you have to understand this concept. People who weren't here for the past 2 days, do you get that point? You don't answer all the questions. Dawah is bringing them straight to our basis. The glasses, the lenses in which we view the world. There's no point giving them just the answer, because they will not see where it came from, or they will not understand our worldview the way we understand it. So that was a summary of yesterday, the day before yesterday. And then we start going into Dawah, God's existence, oneness, revelation, and prophethood. So we discussed the G, God's existence, right? And we gave a few arguments. One was the beginning of the universe. The universe began. The other came from nothing. Created itself. Created by, this is going to be something, okay, some E. Is it E?
Else.
Okay, something else created or created by something else uncreated. Okay, or the other one was design. I'm just summarizing now for the benefit of others. We gave the example of a desert with one S, mobile phone. Was it chance or design? Okay? And then we discussed oneness, and we said if it's an undesigned design, an uncreated creator must be eternal. We talked about the absurdity of the infinite regress of causes. Must be powerful for the reasons we mentioned. Knowing, because it creates laws in the universe, and it creates law as a lawgiver. Transcendent, basically means laysa kamithlihi shay', there is nothing like unto him. As a will, because if it's eternal and brought into existence the universe that began, it must have chose the universe to come into existence. Number 6 must be 1. So we got up to here. And you get agreement at each stage. Now we're on revelation and prophethood. Okay? Now, once you get the agreement that God exists as an uncreated creator, He must have these attributes, then really, it's really being in line with the Islamic conception of God. It's moving away from the Christian conception and other conceptions in religious tradition, because we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Say God is one, He's uniquely one, He's eternal, He's self-subsisting, He begets no, nor was He begotten, there is nothing like unto Him. So, we understand that what we discussed yesterday concerning God's existence and oneness is basically a rational tafsir, a rational exegesis of Surah Ikhlas, essentially. If you even go to the classical works, you'd see even those who hated philosophy would say exactly what we've said today. Because remember, this argument comes from the Quran itself, chapter 52, verse 35 to 36, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the creation of the human being, that He comes from nothing, that He created Himself, and He created the heavens and the earth. And all these principles are implied in the exegetical tradition, in the tafsir of these verses. So, and He's one, and everything here links to Quranic ayah, to Quranic verse, as we mentioned some of them yesterday. So this is for summary for those who didn't attend. And now we talk about revelation, and how do we link now God's existence, oneness, revelation? Well, the simple thing is, and this is the way I do it in a simple sense, I basically say, well, since you've got some kind of agreement that there's an uncreated creator, He must be one, unique, powerful, transcendent, etc., then doesn't it make more sense that He announced Himself to mankind? I mean, let's think about this from an intuitive perspective. When we create something like an iPhone or an iPad or a BlackBerry, and we open the box, usually the product comes with a manual. Now you may say, well, I could do trial and error. Well, that means you're going to be in error at some point. If you read the manual, you can maximize the facilities and capacity of that particular product. Isn't the same with life? Also, revelation may be necessary because human beings are what you would call cosmic orphans. If we were to rely just on our instincts, we would kill each other. And we've been doing that anyway. Look at capitalism. It relies on the instinct of greed, and we've been eating everybody up. The whole world, 5% rich, we're part of the 5%, and the whole world has crumbs and ends up killing each other. So we're cosmic orphans, and we need some kind of guidance. Also, revelation is key to know who God is. Because if you think about it from a historical anthropological perspective, we've been disagreeing on who God is since 6000 BC Sumeria. We have over 3,800 names for God. God knows how many names He has, right? It's just crazy. Chinese versions, Oriental versions, Australian versions, so many different versions of the divine. And we know that the knowledge of God at the moment is like a knocking on the door. We weren't expecting anybody. We're just about to go to sleep. So how do we find out who that person is? It has to come externally. Like, who is it? It's me. Baba or something, yeah, or whatever. So we have to find out externally who that creator is. So that's some reasons to link the creator and the oneness of God to revelation. But then you may argue, well, revelation doesn't have to be necessary. I say, fine, that's true. You don't have to have revelation. Revelation may not be necessary at all. But I think I've got good reasons to believe that revelation does exist. And for us to know what revelation is true, there are 3 criteria. Number 1, as a logical view on God. What do I mean by this? What I mean is, if a book or a revelation said, God is an elephant with 12 earrings, 12 arms, and his green studs, are you going to believe in such a God? Why? What did we agree when we discussed God's existence and oneness? He must be transcendent. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like Him. Because if I create the chair, do I become the chair? It's irrational. I'm distinct and disjoint from the chair. So similarly, you must have a logical view of God. So you're going to reject the revelation rationally if it gives you an idea of God that's illogical. Number 2, second criteria, must be internally, is it 2 L's?
Yeah.
Make your mind up. And externally, you sure?
Yeah.
It must be internally and externally consistent. What do we mean by this? For example, if book X were to say on page number 1, there are 5 gods, but on page number 10 it said there are 10 gods, that's internally inconsistent. And that means it can't be true. Right? Externally consistent means they can't go against established fact. What I mean by established fact is not scientific conclusions, because they change. Even the ones that people say there is a consensus on, trust me, they change. Just recently there was a bunch of physicists that said actually the universe may not be expanding at all. Now interesting, the Quran uses this as an argument for itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and if this wasn't from God, there will be ikhtilafan kathir. Interestingly, you could use this in 2 ways. You could check the whole book for contradictions, or you could do it logically. Because Allah says, ikhtilafan kathir, meaning there will be many ikhtilafan, the word itself. Now that word itself in that form is only mentioned once. Amazing, huh? So there's not many of them. You get it? Yeah. Good. The third criteria is basically it must have what we would call miracles. I think the best thing to call them are ayat. Isn't that right, ayat? The reason being is because ayat in the Arabic tradition is like a sign, an indication to the divine. It's a sign, an indication to the divine reality, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the 3 criteria. If you apply this to any revelation, I would humbly argue Quran comes up on top. Okay? So, number 1, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes himself in a logical and rational and believable way. That is the greatest conception of God, Surah Ikhlas. We know it's internally and externally consistent, and we know it has miracles. So let's discuss some of these miracles, okay? Number 1, linguistic. Allah says in Surah Baqarah, verse 23, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِمَّا نَزَلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And if you're in doubt about this book we have sent down to our servant, referring to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then bring 1 chapter like it and call on your witnesses and supporters besides Allah, in kuntum sadiqeen. Essentially, this, as we mentioned in the Interfaith Dialogue, is concerning the unique literary structure and form of the Quran. It is a unique literary form that hasn't been matched by even the best Arabs in the 7th century, and they were the Arabic linguists par excellence. This is why even Walid ibn al-Mughira, the best polytheist linguist of the time, he said, by Allah, this can't come from a human being. So essentially, we could assess this even to a non-Arab by basically establishing that no one has been able to challenge the Quran. If that's a universally accepted statement, we have 4 options. Did it come from an Arab? Did it come from a non-Arab? Did it come from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Or did it come from God? Allah. So we can assess these together. Well, we know it cannot come from an Arab because even the best Arabs of the time failed. This is why Professor Margaluth and Gibb and others, they said the Arabs failed. The Arabs failed to challenge the Quran. Even though they had the most immense political motivation to do so. Instead of fighting the Muslims and trying to annihilate them, all they had to do is produce 3 lines like it in something that was their own expertise, which was the language itself, but they failed. But they failed. Now you may say, what about today's Arab? Maybe he can do something. Well, this is again irrational. Even if someone says, I've tried, I won't even read it. Because it's irrational. Because these Arabs have come from where? They have come from a heterogeneous linguistic society. Not at the time of the 7th century, it was relatively homogeneous, where the language was pure. Now we have manipulated the Arabic language. How do you say telephone in Arabic in some states? Telephone, television, Yeah? Exactly, we've actually messed up the Arabic language. So intuitively the expression of Fusha, of the classical Arabic, won't come up as eloquent. So could it come from a non-Arab? Well, this is a no-no, because the Quran is what? Arabiyyun Mubin. Arabiyyun Mubin. It is the pure, clear Arabic, so it can't come from a non-Arab. So, can't come from an Arab, can't come from a non-Arab. What about Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Maybe he was a genius. Well, it can't come from Muhammad because he was an Arab too. And it can't come from an Arab because all human expression, and listen very carefully, all human expression, if you have the blueprint, you can copy it. Look at Picasso's work. You have replicas that cost millions because it's just like Picasso. Monet, post-impressionism, any human expression, if you have the blueprint, yalla, khalas, you have the copy, the imitation. But we have the Quran today, 1400 years on, the blueprint of the linguistic structure, yet, subhanAllah, we can't imitate it or bring something that's unique. So therefore, it can't come from Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So using rational deduction, the best explanation is that it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the linguistic miracle. We're going to entertain questions after the miracles, okay? Is that right? That's linguistics. Second point. What I call numerical coherence. With an E? I can't spell these things. So, numerical coherence. The Quran was revealed over a 23-year period for specific times and places and events. Yet the Quran has been compiled into a coherent piece with a certain structure. Interestingly, it has an amazing numerical coherence. For example, Surah Baqarah, which was ruled over a 9-year period, chapter 2, has 286 verses. If you do a karate chop in the middle, haya, you have the 143rd verse. In this verse, you have the word middle. In the 3rd chapter of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Jesus and Adam alayhi salam. And he says that the likeness of Adam is like the likeness of Jesus, because they both have a father. They have a likeness. Interestingly, and I've counted this myself, they're both mentioned 25 times each. And up to this verse, they're mentioned 7 times each. Allahu Akbar. Surah Al-Kawthar, the shortest chapter in the Quran, has 10 main words. It uses 10 letters in each verse, and uses 10 letters only one shot the whole chapter. Allahu Akbar. And we continue. Surah Al-Kawthar. How can the Quran, being revealed over a 23-year period, be compiled together but yet have this numerical coherence? It can only mean the author knew the future. That's numerical coherence. Third point, historical. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 2 titles of the leader of the Egyptians. Okay? The leader of the Egyptians, of the pyramids. One title is, how you spell Pharaoh? Pharaoh. And king. Pharaoh at the time of Moses. Fir'aun, Al-Malik in the time of king. In the time of Yusuf alayhi salam. 2 distinct periods. Egyptian history, this is the new kingdom. This is the old middle kingdom. The Bible got it wrong. Historians of the time got it wrong. It was a dead language, people. Hieroglyphs. You're thinking I can't spell normal words, how can I spell hieroglyphs? Weren't you thinking that? Yes. Do you know why? Because someone spelled it for me today and I remember. So hieroglyphs, right? Hieroglyphs was a dead language. No inscription, no oral tradition, no knowledge, nothing. Zero, zilch. Until the 19th century we found, what's his name? The Rosetta Stone. And then we translated it, and then we read the hieroglyphics and we find Pharaoh, which was a title of veneration, meant the great house. And it was king. By the way, they had specific names like Ramesses, etc. But this was the title of veneration. It was king, then it was Pharaoh for the specific periods. Such a minute detail, the Quran got it right, even though at that time there was no source to that knowledge. Make sense? Next point, miracle after miracle. I'm going to put them up in a minute, yeah? Number 4. Multi-layered. Multi-layered. The Quran is a multi-layered text, it's an ocean. The multi-layered nature of one word. And interestingly, the Quran addresses all types of people, intellects, times and places. In the 7th century, they believed that it was a blood clot, according to the Galenic Greek understanding. Okay? The Galenic Greek understanding. So Allah addresses the mentality, because when Allah uses words, is to evoke an understanding of the divine majesty. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and He deserves to be worshipped. Look at the alaqa, you are like a blood clot. However, fast forward into the future, in the 15th century, we discover the microscope. And what you see in the 21st century, that the embryo looks like a leech or worm at day 22. 21st century. So you see the Quran addresses different levels of understanding at different periods of time. But also, it's so multi-layered, it might not refer to anything natural. It might refer to the fact that the Quran, that the human embryo acts like a leech in the mother's womb because it drains her resources. And you're like a parasite, which is true. So therefore, lower the wing of humility for your mother. Make sense? So you see, it's multi-layered. And it agrees with reality. Number 5. It's a preserved text. Well, you may think, well, Shakespeare's preserved, what's the big deal? But the point here is that for a religious document, it's the only religious document we can guarantee it is from the source, because we have an oral and textual tradition verifying it. We have 100% of the Quran, 1st century after Hijrah. 100% of the Quran, 1st century after Hijrah. And interestingly, there was a huge political, creedal, religious motivation to change the Quran, yet it remains in one volume, in one book, exactly the same way that it is. Number 6, transformation. Caroline Hillenbrand. I think that's how you spell the name. Oops. An anthropologist, historian, she says, how can one man plus 23 years plus one book equal to take over the world and create peace and harmony? This has no anthropological or historical precedence. And the key aspect here is the book itself. The Quran came at a time, just after a time when one of the leading patriarchs or popes, I think his name was Gregory, he said we live in darkness and despair. The Byzantine power, the empire, the Orthodox Church was killing its own people, the Jacobites. But Islam came with its book and it took over these lands, and the Jacobites were calling the Muslims, and the Muslims preserved the Jacobite tradition. Also, we preserve the Jews. the head of the New York Times, what does he say? And he's a Jew. He says, if Islam took over Europe in the 1940s, we'll have 6 million more Jews today. It is no wonder that the Jewish rabbi, in 1453, you can find this letter in the book Constantinople by the historian Philip Mansell. He says, come to the land of the Muslims, of the Turks, rich of the fruits of the earth. We're not oppressed with heavy taxes, and we live in peace and freedom. It is no wonder Zain Zohar in his book, Sephardic and Mizrahi Jewry, he says, thus when the Muslims crossed the Straits of Gibraltar in the Iberian Peninsula, the Jews saw the Muslims as liberators from Christian persecution. An ex-journalist Zionist, Yuri Avnery, says, every honest Jew must thank Islam for preservation of the Jews. There's a historical, unprecedented fact here that one book did all of this within a very short period of time. This is why just 80 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, we were in Multan, Pakistan, and we were in Spain. And by the way, it was only 82 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ that they decided to fix the mosque. It's still dripping of water. But take a look at our situation. We want to build the domes and the minarets, which has no Islamic basis, by the way. And we don't want to solve human problems. We want to build domes and minarets which has no Islamic basis. Wallahi, it has no Islamic basis. Uqsum billah. Tell me, if you had a choice to spend 500,000 riyals or 2 billion riyals on a gold bloody dome and minarets, or go feed the poor, or create peace and justice, what would the Prophet do? Tell me, build the dome, or build the minarets, or do this, fi sabilillah. Exactly. But yeah, we're pump and glitter. We think structures are going to build people. Wallahi, the Prophet's mosque was still raining. It was still dripping of water 80 years after his death. And you think we're going to create change by building institutions and building buildings. No, you build people. And that's why the Sahaba, they died outside of the homeland. And yet we're still crying and thinking, we need architecture, and we need minarets, and we need domes. The Prophet's mosque was just nothing. And then we think we have to look good. That's why we're screwed up. That's why Muslims are screwed up. We have screwed up the world. Listen to this and listen very carefully. And I want you to think about this. If every single Muslim died in this planet today, imagine 1, 2, 3, everyone dies, all Muslims die. What would the world do? We know that the Prophet ﷺ couldn't be lying. Why?
Because he's always honest.
Yeah, exactly. He was always honest. Even his enemies called him the trustworthy. When he stood on the mount and he said, if there was an army behind you, would you believe? He said, yes, we would believe you because you're the trustworthy one. Also, even his enemies gave him things to entrust him with their goods and their resources. But when we look at the psychological profile of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, according to the historical narratives, what we see is that his psychological profile is so the antithesis of a liar. Because a liar lies for some worldly gain, right? Glory, money, women, power, land. But he was offered women, he said no, la ilaha illallah. He was offered land, no, say la ilaha illallah. Offered power 1 year, they're not having power the other year, he said no, say la ilaha illallah. Riches, everything, land, glory, rejected it. Even when in the conquest of Mecca, when he took over Mecca peacefully, his head was almost touching his riding beast. That's how humbled he was. His uncle passed away. His beloved wife Khadija radiallahu anha passed away. His son Ibrahim passed away. His sons passed away. His Sahaba were tortured and abused. He was so brave in the battle of Hunayn that when all the arrows were flying, he was still marching forward. When the Sahaba were retreating, he said, I am not a liar, I am the messenger of Allah. He was so hungry from the boycott. He was boycotted from Mecca that he tied 2 stones to his stomach. Even when he had power, there was no smoke coming out of the house of Aisha radiallahu anha for 6 months. This is a lie. Wallahi, to claim he's a liar is to claim no one has spoken the truth. Because he doesn't fit the psychological profile of a liar. So he can't be lying. Well, could he be deluded? Well, no, for many reasons. Let me give you 3 reasons. Reason number 1, there are many instances in his life that he could have used to support his delusion. You know some people, oh yes, I must be the Prophet. Yeah? Or something you see in the silly movies, not that you should watch movies. You have women saying, he looked at me, he must love me. Yeah? The delusion of the woman, yeah? In the film, not women in general, yeah? Okay? For the feminists in the audience. Or even men are like that too. Actually, men are worse, but they don't show it. That's the problem.
She liked me on Facebook.
She liked me on Facebook, yeah. She must like me. No, bro, she coughed and she accidentally breathed her mouth. So, for instance, you had the death of Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and at the same time there was a solar eclipse. All the Arabs running saying, look, Allah made the solar eclipse because of the death of Ibrahim. He said, no. These are the 2 signs of Allah. When you see them, get up and pray. They don't eclipse for nobody's death. If he was deluded, he would have used that to support his delusion.
Or if you are the light.
Exactly. The second point is that the Prophet ﷺ had many prophecies. Many prophecies. He foretold, for example, the Mongol invasion. He said, the time won't come until you fight a people, I'm paraphrasing here, that have flat faces, small eyes, flat noses, and furry boots. And their face will be like shields. If that's not the Mongols, then I'm Japanese. The Prophet ﷺ also foretold the murder of Ammar in the civil war. He said, oh Ammar, what a pity, a rebellious group will kill you. Yes. Also we have, for example, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, this in Bukhari, where he told Fatima radiallahu anha that he should be the first to join him of the family after his death. We have so many ahadith. Even there's a hadith, and I'm paraphrasing, that the time won't come, as-sa'ah, the time won't come unless they pierce holes in the mountains of Mecca. Check what they're doing now, they're piercing holes through the mountain of Mecca. He said, and then, and he mentions other things, and he said, then, as-sa'ah, the time of the Day of Judgment will cast its shadow. Interestingly, there's a big dirty clock in the haram, and its shadow is casting the haram, over the haram. Do you know what they call that clock? As-sa'ah. Yeah. Amazing, yeah? Obviously in hadith we take the haqiqah, the literal meaning. But you know, sometimes you're allowed to do tadabbur on these things, but you can't say that's what it means. Yeah. Anyway, so he can't be deluded. Yeah.
How do you define deluded this?
Deluded is someone who thinks they're speaking the truth but they're not. It's based on a lie.
So the predictions show that he was speaking the truth.
Yes.
So okay.
But he also showed he wasn't deluded, because a deluded person thinks he's speaking the truth, but it's not truthful. But he knows he was speaking the truth and it was truthful. So there's another way of looking at it, yeah? The other point is, look at his teachings. The Prophet ﷺ taught about akhlaq, adab. The best of you are the best to his wife. The best of you are the best in morals. The best of you are those who feed the neighbor, who go to the sick, feed the poor. So we know the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So from this perspective, he can't be deluded. Also there is a Quranic argument, the balagha. And for a special gift, if you could get this, you get a gift straight away, immediately. There is one word Allah uses in one surah that undermines that the Prophet ﷺ was deluded. And that word has a meaning that refutes the argument. What is it? I give you the chapter.
Can you say that again?
There is one word in Surah An-Najm that Allah uses that refutes the fact that he was deluded. No. Give me the one word, not the verse. No. Hands. Sorry? No. No. Hands.
Bro.
How? No. What does that mean? Desire. No. How does that mean anything? It refutes the argument. Don't just guess, bro. It's not luxury. Come on.
You have?
No.
What?
Hands.
Oh.
Yes. Ahmed. No.
That's not the right surah.
It's not in the surah either.
وحي
Sorry? No.
وحي
No. تذكرون. لا. No. No.
وحي
Yeah, the whole thing is
No. منتهى. It's one word in that sentence. No. Yes. Sahibukum. What does sahibukum mean? Your companion, your friend. Allah Jalla wa Ala could just use the word your prophet, our prophet, Muhammad, this man, but he uses the word sahibukum, your friend. Because your companion in the classical Arabic dictionaries means, yani, you've been intimate with this guy, you've known this guy, you had a bag of salt with this guy because you get lots of food. You know the guy well. If he was really deluded, you Quraysh Arabs would have known, you would have seen the signs. Even in modern psychiatry and psychology, the first thing they do is interview family and friends concerning someone's madness. So you think he's really mad? Your friend! Wake up, he's your friend here. You would have known he's mad. Don't use this as an intellectual argument. You're grasping at straws because he's your mate, companion, and you would have known. Because you knew he was a trustworthy, you knew who he was, you've done everything with him. There was no signs for madness. Just one, look how the Quran amazing. One word refutes the argument. So, he couldn't be both because one falsehood plus one falsehood is equal to a falsehood. Therefore, he must be speaking the truth.
Why is the third even an option?
Because some people say that, they try to be clever. No, sometimes you could have been lying and sometimes you could have been deluded.
And it looks better to have 4 options and cancel 3 of them.
Yeah.
Psychologically.
Only an Arab would say that. Okay, good. So let's apply this to the Mormon Joseph Smith, okay? Was he a liar? Well, we found out that Joseph Smith mistranslated those, what do you call it, the tablets. So maybe he was a liar, but he was definitely deluded. Because we know that the translation was false. Simple as that. Done. And even if you apply this to Jesus according to the Bible, then there is a problem because you don't know what actually Jesus said. Was he God or was he man? Also, the basis for the history is false because the Bible has been changed over time. Our basis for our history, Quran and Hadith, has been preserved. So, practice this. Let's go. By the way, don't forget to mention, we all believe in prophets. So you mentioned that there is a narrative. This is Adam alayhi salam. And he came with the 5 pillars. Okay? And he taught us how to manifest the 6 pillars of Iman. Who knows the 6 pillars of Iman? Mention them. Start from the beginning. So, believe in Allah, Tawheed, angels, books, messengers, the hereafter,
Predestination.
and
Predestination of Qadr.
predestination. You need to affirm this. If they believe in Quran, they don't believe in this, they don't believe in Quran. Let's go. Bismillah. Practice. There are 2 levels to this course. The level 2 is where we break down contentions and we go for academic arguments like ilm al-hadith. We go through, for example, ilm al-rijal, the isnad, the matan, etc. So we justify the historical context to this argument. We go through more academic stuff. But we don't have 2 full days. We don't have 18 hours. We just had 3 small evenings. So take this course as the structure. There is another course that we have that goes in total detail in terms of going through all the contentions from ilm al-hadith to aspects of Islamic thought to Quran and stuff like this. But this course will specifically give you a structure, not necessarily arguments. The arguments you have to research further for yourself. Okay? So you've gone through the whole Gorak approach now. So now when someone asks you a question, you know to use initiation to link any question to the answer. Once you do that, you talk about common sense, God's existence, His oneness, revelation, and prophethood. And you don't need to use sometimes prophethood. You go straight to Quran. Remember, this structure, use it as a map, not as Moses' tablets, written in stone. Be flexible with it. It could be done in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, or 5 years. You could do some parts of it whenever you can. It's a tool set for you to use. So don't be very dogmatic with it, okay? So, from this perspective, we're done. So what I suggest we do is just open it out for like last 10 minutes of question and answers. And then khalas. So, questions, hands. Yes. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
طيب
ومغفرة رزق كريم.
Like a guy who says, I'm extremely skeptic.
You know what you say to the extreme skeptic?
Yeah.
Tell him, I don't believe you.
Yeah, prove you exist.
Just tell him, I don't believe you.
Prove you exist.
He means the guy who says like maybe this statement doesn't exist.
Yeah, tell him I don't believe you. Just tell him.
Do you see the irony?
Use his argument against him. I don't believe you. I'm joking, Karen. Yalla.
Okay. Yeah, that's the point. What should I reply? Like,
See, there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. When you speak to a human being, empathize with them. Don't get into debates. Use rahmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you weren't kind and merciful to them, the Sahaba would have run away. Meaning, the key to da'wah is rahmah. The ulama, the mufassirun, they discuss this ayah and they say this is because the person was soft. So be soft, even if you're going to slap them. Yeah? So what I would say is, I appreciate your skepticism, but let me take your skepticism and turn it around to some of the things in your life. Your own argument would mean you can't believe your mother anymore. Your own argument means that there's no pit cross in the road because you may be skeptical that basically the bridge that you're walking on may collapse and you don't trust the laws of physics. Use his arguments at a practical level against him. And if he still says it's not true, then you say, that's fine, I agree with your skepticism, but just listen to me and plant the seed, then go. Don't sit there and have a debate about skepticism because you get to a useless argument. Don't end up in useless arguments because a lot of skepticism is as a result of a disease of a heart, which is he just doesn't want anything to be true because he doesn't want to face the consequences of those truths. And that's why sometimes in their life they'll be so haq, yaqeen in so many matters, but when it comes to things about man, life, and the universe, we don't know. Yeah? So it's a contradictory psychological stance. Skepticism is actually a psychological disease rather than a philosophical approach. And skepticism came from Sectus Empiricus. It's also called Pyrrhonism. It's also called Pyrrhonism in philosophy. Virus of Elias, he's basically, would say nothing. But the true skeptic position, bro, is they can't assert anything. Because the skeptic says there is no truth. But yani, you can't even say that statement because it's a statement of truth. Do you understand? It's self-defeating. Skepticism is self-defeating. They must either shut up or just suggest something. So the minute they make a claim, they're making a claim to truth. So yani, you're skeptical about this, but you're not skeptical about your own assertions. The very fact that there is no truth. So it's easily refuted. It's self-refuting.
So what should I do? Just leave them?
Plant the seeds. Your job is to plant seeds, bro. Allah gives the rain for the hidayah to grow. It's up to Allah. Just plant the seeds. And don't forget, bro, this attitude that you have come with the past 3 days, may Allah bless you and preserve you, is actually, maybe you're misunderstanding your role and Allah's role. Your role is to plant seed, give the message. Allah's role is the hidayah business. You understand? Don't think they're the same. Because some of you, no, my arguments are the best, he has to agree with me, what's wrong, he's so stupid. No, that's all wrong. Yeah? Although we feel like that, but that's not how hidayah works. It's outside of our control. Does that make sense? Next question, yes, sister.
This is an argument I've heard numerous times. They quote a particular verse in the Quran, and its English translation basically comes to this: a man is allowed to beat his wife.
Yes.
I think you know the verse I'm talking about. What would you... And there are many English translations which come exactly to that.
Yes.
The man is allowed to beat his wife.
What's wrong
And
with
then
beating
people...
wife?
I'm sorry?
That's
Seriously?
okay. The view that I follow is the linguistic word for that. It's daraba. It comes from the word to also do tayammum. Okay, when you do tayammum, Allah says to strike the ground. When you strike the ground in tayammum, you don't hit it, do you? You just do this. You stroke it, yeah. And we believe in the Islamic classical tradition that this is a symbolic act. It's not a beating or a striking. And that's why ulama say it's like almost tapping someone with a miswak. It means, khalas, this is the end. And there's other ayat in the Quran when the king, I think it was the king, he took a blade of grass and striked it at somebody, yeah? So it's a symbolic thing and it's a mistranslation. However, look, let me teach you something that will deal with this. At the end of the day, does that clarify? Yeah. At the end of the day, look at this structure. Ready? If God says X, what is the truth value of X? So this is an unknown, yeah? If God says X, what's the truth value of X? What's the truth value? Is it true or false?
It's true.
So, if Quran says, let's say you never read Quran before, and it says in chapter 2 verse something, and it says women must beat their husbands. But the word beat is like punch in the face. If God said that, if you know He said it, you can prove those words are from God, what's the truth value of punching your husband in the face? True or false? What is it? Khalas, don't worry about it. If you give people that principle, then they'll appreciate that they wouldn't go to the Quran with their own moral tradition and try to superimpose it on the Quran. The Quran came to change our ethical outlook. Don't get me wrong, there are some ikhtilaf, there are some differences of views, even in the Islamic tradition, on what the Quran says. But that's life, and that's the test, and that's the nature of revelation. There is a scope of interpretation, okay? Yes?
No, sorry, just to add to her response, and like I've actually heard of that question before, I've heard of this possible.
Excuse me?
That basically, like the Prophet's life was the best example of
Yes.
the Quran, and so if you look at how he treated his wives, then like he never bet any of his wives. So
Yeah, but see, there are a lot of fabricated theories which say that he did, and then people use that argument.
No, there is no one. There was
No,
only
fabricated
one with
evidence.
Aisha, and that was more of like, it was like a joke.
the most thing you can
But
get.
what's
Yeah.
serious
Oh, I meant fabricated evidence.
Oh, well, they don't believe them, but the fabricated. And the other thing is, sister, we have to realize is, actually the Prophet got hit by his wives. Yes.
They believe it.
Aisha just pushed his face away. Just went, boom. Yeah? And that's how Torah he was. And wallahi, listen to this, you crazy, arrogant Arabs, yeah, with your wives, just in case. He had all his friends and Sahaba there. Aisha radiallahu anha had no food. They had to borrow food from another wife. Aisha in front of the Sahaba broke her plate and got angry. How did the Prophet reply? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imagine if it was you, you'd be like, what? Ah, yeah, it's my house. He was like, your mother's upset, your mother's jealous. Yeah? That's all he said. That's all he said. Imagine that happened to your dad's house. Probably pick up the AK-47. Right, I'll get another one. Yeah? So, do you see my point? So, the sister's so right. You see the manifestation of the Quran in the Prophet ﷺ, because he was a walking Quran, as per the words of Aisha radiallahu anha. But that's a good structure to follow as well in a kind of moral sense, that if God said X and the truth value of X is true. Any other questions? Yes?
Remember how I said before when I was talking about the patience thing, like it's not just like there's a lot Muslims where they're not patient enough. So how do you tell them? Because
Easy.
religious comes
Become a doctor, you have lots of patience.
What?
Okay, I'm gonna leave tomorrow so you don't have to tolerate me. But I think, you know, the assistant in the car, I've actually been laughing the most. No, because I've seen it sometimes, she's been like this. Yeah. She thinks she can hide, but she can't hide from Hamza, man. She must be British then, because she knows the jokes. Are you British? Oh, okay, well, there you go. Go on, sister.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, how do you tell them? Because a lot of like people don't like come into the, especially like young adults.
So you're saying for you to become religious, they need to be patient? Because
No, it's not. It's just a factor, but it's like one of. I believe it's one of the important factors that you need to be patient because everything comes at the right time, in the right.
Well, you know what, your sister, some reason are patient with so many different things. Like youth become like great football players, right? You have to be patient in training. I don't think it's anything to do with patience. I think it's to do with role models.
Okay.
Youth need role models. We're very social animals, and we don't have many role models, frankly. And we need more role models that are religious, but yet contemporary, and yet preserve the tradition. They get along with the world. They could be distinct with their values, and that's what we need. But we don't have any role models. Yeah. How many role models do we have in Qatar, for example, like Islamic, Orthodox role models that can articulate themselves? There are a few. But for the youth, though, that's youth as well. That's my point. Not when they become old and cha-cha, yeah. Not when they become like uncles. When they're youth, like your age.
We're trying.
I know you're trying. But the point is, we need more. You see? And that's why you guys need to be people of influence, inshallah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So we started this by saying in order to understand the question or to answer the question, we have to go back to the concept of Islam.
Yeah.
But at this moment, when we stop here, we didn't actually answer the question.
Yes.
There is only two scenarios.
You did
We
answer.
know the answer. Okay.
You did answer the question. No, the concept is, in order for you to understand the answer, you have to understand the concept of Islam. So, you gave them the concept of Islam, and if the question was, why do I wear hijab? Then the concept of Islam dictates that I wear hijab because God said so. That's it, bro. You've given the basis for,
That's it.
I submit. You've given the basis of being a Muslim. I submit to Allah. So whether it's the beard, the prayer, the fasting, all questions, because God said so. Now if you said that first, they will never listen to you. But you say you have to understand the concept, and you think, well, if it's true, whatever comes from truth is
True.
whatever comes from haqq is simple. Simple. Any other questions? Yes?
I have a question. I don't know if any other sisters have it, but is it okay if I take like 1 minute every time after, like, private, like not in front of everybody, to ask you just 1 minute? It's to do with Dawah.
Yeah, sure. Yes, sir.
I used to have a problem with friends when
You used to have a problem with friends.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean because my friends because my friend is non-Muslim. So when we are discussing, we are not it's not a question. We are more towards because for example when you are talking about the fasting. So Indians said they have the similarity between Muslims. So this kind of ideology, I don't know how I have to, because normally when it comes to conversation, I fail to prove that they are wrong.
Why? There's nothing wrong with them being right.
Sorry.
There's nothing wrong with them being right if the similarities are similarities. What I would do in that situation is when you talk about fasting, for example, and someone says, hey, we have fasting too, we have similarities. Say, oh, that's very good. But you know why I fast? If you give me 2 minutes, I can explain why I fast. And in order for you to understand why I fast, you have to understand the concept of Islam. And talk about the concept of Islam.
We are not like, they are not really want to know what is
You give them what they need, not what they want.
Yeah, but give them what they need, not what they want. So what? Why are you being such an Asian for? You don't want to upset people. What's the matter with you? Your job is to upset and shake the world. What do you think the Quran did? It shook the world. Well, you're going to stand by and let people just, walk towards hell? What's the matter with you? Look, wallahi, that means you're not honest with yourself or others, bro. Yeah, come on, man. How can you sit with people like that? I wouldn't even consider them my friends unless they hear what I have to say. Then I'll be their friend. Remember, if Islam defines you, bro, then you should tell them. If you want to be my friend, you need to hear me out. You need to know why I do the things that I do. Don't be this postmodern, yeah, everything's fine, and you're alright, I'm alright, and you could have my daughter as well. Yeah, that's what happens, man. Why you won't believe it? In Britain, you have some idiot called Taj Hagi, may Allah guide him. He marries sisters to non-Muslim men. Yeah, and he thinks it's fine. But to be honest, sometimes non-Muslim men are better than Muslim men in prayer, and it's quite sad. From an akhlaq point of view, yeah, not from the aqidah.
Actually, because normally when it comes to the conversation, we used to say like, for example, Muslim have actually the similarity, like our religion is going to, the concept is actually the harmonization.
Fine, say yeah, we're about harmonization. But how do we get true harmony? I believe you have to follow a truth. In order for you to understand what truth is, you have to understand the concept of Islam. Do you have some time? If he says no, then he says no. But then if he doesn't want to listen to you, then how can he be your friend? That means he's using you. Muslim friend. So, my non-Muslim friends need to know about who I am. They need to have a discussion about something. I don't think I have non-Muslim friends, but the thing is, if I did, that's how it would be. Like my family know who I am and what I'm about. I don't say anything just to keep the peace. SubhanAllah, imagine they're in hell, yeah? And you need to tell them about Islam just to keep the peace. That's dangerous, bro. It's not funny, is it?
And they're not going to beat you up, right? They beat up the Prophet ﷺ. They're not going to beat you up.
Exactly, we have it easy here, bro. They're not going to hit you, beat you up. The Arabs used to step on the Prophet's neck. He almost broke. And Abu Bakr had to run and say, are you going to kill a man because he says his Rabb is Allah? Here we have it easy, bro. You're in a Muslim country.
I mean, I used to explain scientifically, but when it comes to the certain things, I'm lost.
Yeah, I think if you follow this approach, you're fine. It's all about practice and keep on doing it. Wallahi, you only learn from practice. Questions? Yes? You.
So, when you do the Gorab and you go to, for example, public in Qatar, who haven't got university education at an excellent level, and they don't get these arguments because they go over their head sometimes.
I won't. You won't. You won't. You say, okay, hello sir, how are you? I'm good, I'm fine. Do you know why I think God exists? Who made this pen? Somebody. Exactly, because it's made, it's created. It wasn't always here. Imagine the whole universe. Who made the universe? That's it. You make it very simple, bro. Quran, this book is from Allah. Do you know why? And explain. No one can make anything like it. But if I gave you a cup and I gave you the materials to make this, would you be able to make it? Of course. Because I know what it looks like. Well, we know what the Quran looks like, but we can't make anything like it. And you can make it even easier. You know, if you had carpenters, the best carpenters in the world, you gave them the blueprint and the way to make a new chair. But they had all the tools possible and they exhausted everything, but they never made the chair. The Quran is like that. It's a miracle. Or if someone likes cars, imagine the Lamborghini engineering team. You gave them the map, you gave them the kind of blueprint for the car, all the tools possible and the bits and pieces. But they exhaust all combinations, they could never produce a Lamborghini. Let's make it easy for you, bro. How could the Prophet be a liar? Look what happened to him. Is that what liar does? Oh, of course not. You can break it down, bro. If you know at a high level, you can break it down to a lower level. Questions? Yes?
So, the last few days has been very enlightening for all of us. Moving forward, many of us are occupied with work, studies. We get a chance to attend khutbahs, lectures like these, workshops like these. I mean, how do we continue learning?
We need to find time.
More structured.
Bro, I was a project manager, right? I used to go into work sometimes at 8 in the morning. I used to be so fast at my work, I might finish at 1. From 1 to 5, I'll be on my blog, writing essays, doing stuff. I'll take time off work to go to do lectures. I used to arrange my own events, set up debates with people, all on my own, do the marketing myself, everything, And I was working as a project manager. So if I could do it, you could do it.
How do we?
So no TV. Take TV out of your life. It's mind poison. Okay. Your phone. Take your games off your phone. Yeah. Also, so TV, phone. If you're married, if you're about to get married, find a spouse that knows your vision for your life. So she doesn't basically, or he doesn't basically make your life very slow, and it's all about, irrelevant things. Like, I don't know. It's good to go out and have fun, and there's a balance. But sometimes people are so overwhelmed by their career, for example. It's all about their career. Have a balance. Because on the Day of Judgment, Allah is going to ask you if you were a great engineer, or if you built this bridge or that bridge. Unless your job is so specific, it gets a lot of reward, like a doctor and engineer, that you're doing it for the sake of Allah, then khalas, your life is full of doubt, yeah? Which is great. But you have to do it for the sake of Allah. But for many other jobs, it's just a 9 to 5 thing, or it's a 7 to 1 thing in Qatar, or 7 to 2 thing, yeah? So make as much time as possible, and sleep less. Many of us sleep too much.
What would you advise in terms of like, we're sitting for the kind of structured information, like we got the last 3 days, where you have a share, and you refer to them. What advice would you give in terms of what resources are out there that we can access that have a more structured way to be done?
I think the best learning experience for the Dawah is to start doing the Dawah. That's the first step. And the second.
Someone goes around you, like in our offices, in our classrooms.
Yeah, offices, classroom,
in your job, in your
friends, social activities. Remember, you're in Qatar, for God's sake. You're not living in America. You're in Qatar, meaning you don't get in trouble for speaking about Islam.
No, we're not going to.
My question is, you have easy about you study class. How does one go about it?
No, you see, don't fall for the trap. Listen, brothers, listen to me. Abdullah. Don't fall for the mistake that you think you have to become an alim in order to give da'wah. That's wrong. Bro, wallahi, we teach ulama how to give da'wah. We were invited by Mecca and Medina University. Listen to me. We were invited by Medina University, bro, on how to give da'wah. Because da'wah most of it is about experience. And there's a dalil from the ulama, they say when the Prophet ﷺ met the prophets, when he went to speak to Allah about the prayers, and he met Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam gave the Prophet advice, this is too hard for them, bring the prayers down. Because Musa had experience. So it shows that experience is actually a key part of da'wah. Do you see? You don't have to become an alim, bro. It won't get you nothing. My iPad's an alim. It has Quran and Hadith in there. It's about the experience. Just get involved in the experience. Even if it's online on YouTube, make it on YouTube, do your vlogs, speak to people, do as much as you can. Get involved with culture exchange, NYC, with all the groups available here that do da'wah. I believe they're going to be setting up street da'wah soon. There might be online da'wah, there might be exchange of ideas, discussion, debates, forums, interfaith. You've started a good sunnah, continue it. All of you should be involved. Frankly, you shouldn't be inviting me here ever again. That would be job done. If I come again, that means my job's not done. I failed. Really. So I wish I never see you again. No, for the sake of Allah. Because you guys are supposed to be doing this now. What do you think this is, some kind of joke? A spiritual insulin? You got spiritual diabetes? I'm here just to give you the insulin, ya Allah, and that's it. You're high for a while, then you go and drop dead. What's this about? Don't be pussyfooting around anymore, guys. This is like, you're grown-ups now, yeah? It's time for movement, time for change, time for doing stuff. Yeah, obviously if you need new add-ons and more training and the advanced stuff, well, yeah, it will come. But for this kind of stuff, you should be doing it now. We should be arranging now that handful of sisters and brothers become trainers in this. We could do this online. And it's your responsibility now, it's on your shoulders, the Amira and the Amir, to actually arrange that they become trainers in the Gulf. And IERA could use our marketing skills and stuff to arrange you to train people in the Gulf this method. Allahu Akbar. They'll be leaving it. Obviously it will take time, but have a vision. Within a year, 3 brothers, 3 sisters become trainers. Actually, khalas, that's your homework. Within a year, 3 brothers, 3 sisters become trainers. for the whole Arab world and the Gulf. If you don't have this vision, what's the point? You need to have a vision to move forward in your life. Yes?
If it's 9:10, but if you don't mind, like, it's not a question, but because I thought of it when you talked about CEC and excited, we're in Qatar, but we feel about Islam. You had like this really nice speech about Qadar. You know what I'm talking about? How it empowers you? Can you tell us? 2-3 minutes? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Qadar.
Qadar.
Obviously Qatar.
Qadar.
How does Qatar empower you?
I'm sorry, Qadar. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't remember what I said.
If you really understand Qadar, then you're not going to say
Infinite possibility.
The student affairs, the university, the government.
Oh.
Infinite power.
Yeah. So basically, we'll end on this, inshallah. And this is good for empowerment, okay? Because once we understand who Allah is, and once we understand qadar, divine destiny and predestination, then we should be crazy people. The Sahaba, if you were to analyze them in a Western mindset, you should call them crazy. And we need crazy people. Why? Because they were empowered by something that no one was empowered by. Because they believed that everything happened because of the will of Allah. And you know what we say? It's in the hadith and it's in the Quran as well. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no true power apart from the power of Allah. If we really understand this properly and we internalize it, it means nothing apart from Allah has intrinsic power. Nothing. Therefore, anything that happens is as a result of the will, the qadr and the qudra and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means Joe Bloggs, John Doe next door has no intrinsic power to change your destiny. It means the Zionists have no power to change your destiny. You don't become a victim anymore. You don't point the finger at Bush, Blair, Obama, the American regime, neo-colonialists. You don't blame anybody. Because you know these things don't have intrinsic power, but rather they are a manifestation of the power and will of Allah. So how does it empower you? It empowers you because now you have a mindset, you know the reality. That when I walk towards a certain path, I know these things are not obstacles. They're not true obstacles, they're just things that Allah uses to bring about His will and His power. So therefore, if I try anything new, I can't use the excuse, oh, but what about the dean of the university, he doesn't like us, or Sheikh so-and-so, or we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough manpower, we can't do this and we can't do that, and you allow shaitan to use your own voice against you. All of that should not happen. Because you know that only things happen because of the will and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of all these things that we just mentioned. Therefore, you should have the mindset, I can do anything as long as Allah wills it. And that's the statement. That as long as Allah wills it means what? It means you don't know. Because you know the will of Allah? If you don't know the will of Allah, what does that create? It creates an infinite realm of possibility to achieve what you can. An infinite realm of possibility to achieve what you can. It's such an empowering, Tawheed is so empowering. Therefore, if you tried your best and you failed, it's still good. Because for the Muslim, the manifestation of the will of Allah is good. Hence the hadith of the Riyadh al-Salihin when the Prophet ﷺ said, Ajaba, amazing, is the situation of the believer. If something good happens to him, he's thankful and that's good for him. If something bad happens to him, he's patient and that's good for him too. So don't fall for the trap of allowing shaitan to use your own voice against you. For example, someone wants to give you, someone asks you, right, you've got to give a talk in 5 minutes, we've got no choice. Don't say no. That could be minor shirk. It could be. I'm not giving an assessment. Because how do you know you can't give a talk? Don't allow shaitan to use your voice against you. Just do it and wallahi it will happen. And Allah will make it easy, you get the ball rolling. Because you don't know what's going to happen in 5 minutes. If I said to you, right, in 5 minutes give a talk, and you said, no, I can't, how do you know? Have you lived those 5 minutes? That's how powerful Tawheed is. Because things only happen because of the will and power of Allah. So trust in it. And if you try your best, you fail, then it's good in it. But if you just sit back and don't do nothing, shaitan's won. And it means you haven't brought Tawheed in your life properly. Because Qadr, bro, wasn't a philosophical exercise for the Sahaba. It was a reality. Because the Quran, what does the Quran say? And the Sunnah say, if the whole world were to come to harm you, wallahi, they will never harm you unless it's the will of Allah. If the whole world were to come to benefit you, they will never benefit you unless it's in line with the will of Allah. That's empowering. That means you could do anything, as long as in line with the will of Allah. And since you don't know His will, you have an infinite realm of possibility. Don't start blaming the past, your ability, his ability, Shaitan's voice, your negativity, your low self-esteem, your parents, your this, your upbringing, your psychodynamic issues, your depression, your this, your that. Bull crap. It's crap. This is why the Sahaba, after eating lizards, buried their daughters alive, and the Arabian Peninsula was like an ashtray of the world. They arised, they warned, and they ended up in Pakistan, China, and Spain. And you had 17-year-olds taking over places like Pakistan and Spain and leading armies. But now our 17-year-olds lead armies on Xbox. You're laughing, huh? You're laughing, huh? But it's true. In my humble view, there's no men anymore. We've lost chivalry. We have lost chivalry, we have lost that kind of masculinity, that kind of being a man, you know? We've been mothered too easily, especially first son Arabs and first son Pakistanis, yeah? If they don't have their food, if they don't have ease, we have our maids, we have this, we have that. There's nothing wrong with that, it's barakah, it's blessing from Allah. But we've become complacent. You know, something harms you, I can't do it. I got scratched. It hurts. This, that. Yeah? I got my 2-year-old, when Zakaria was 2, he's now 6. When he fell in the ground in a puddle, his face in the puddle, he couldn't get up, I left him there for 2 seconds. We're all pufters in the Arabian Peninsula now. Honestly. And around the Muslim world. They can't arise, they can't do anything, everything they have to be cotton wool. Yeah? And it's the mothers that have to do with this, because they're the biggest teachers. Wallahi, the status of women in Islam is higher than the man, in my opinion. I'm not saying this just to be pro-woman. The status of the woman is higher than the man. Do you know why? Because she's the first teacher of the scholars, she's the first protector of the mujahid. That's why she's an honor that needs to be protected. So the point is, brothers and sisters, we need to basically go back to our values and we need to man up and woman up, you know? And it's simple as that. We're very cotton wool these days, aren't we? You know? Sleep on the floor sometimes. Have 1 meal a day. Just live on lentils for a week. Do something like that. Train yourself. You know, Imam Shafi would never fill his stomach for 13 years. He never had his fill for 13 years. You know the hadith, the worst thing to fill is your stomach. Because it leads to spiritual diseases, right? So things like that, follow the sunnah, elevate the spiritual practice, and you see you become very free. Because your desires are like coins in your pocket. The more coins you have, the more they drag you down. So do that. And especially in sometimes Arab or Asian custom, food is very important. If it's not the right spice, if it's not the right kind of meat, khalas, there's jihad in the house. Yeah? Train yourself. See if you could do it. See if you could do it. See if you could train your family to live on potatoes for a week. Do it. How else are you going to train your family? You have to put them in an experiential situation. The Sahaba did this to themselves. Clothes, for example. Try and wear the same clothes for 2 days. Or one that was stitched. Put a patch on it, see what happens. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. But try and do it. See what happens. Try and debase yourself every day of the week. I'm nobody, you're better than me, you're better than me. Yeah? Just try and do that. Because if you don't experience it, how are you going to be it? Remember? You be, you do, and you become. That's how you change. You be, you do, and you become. Because that's what it takes. That's why most of the Sahaba had teachers. Had a teacher with the Prophet ﷺ. Most of the Tabi'een had teachers. It was the Sahaba. Even the Prophet had a teacher. Who was his teacher? Jibreel alayhi salam gave him the tarbiyah, the purification. So we need to immerse ourselves in the experience of the process, otherwise we won't taste it or feel it. Because being an alim is easy, memorizing Quran and Hadith. How's that going to change you though? Memorization, remember what I said in the beginning of the course? Doesn't change anybody. That's not ilm. Ilm, as Imam Malik said, is the nur that Allah puts in your heart from the knowledge that you internalize, you become Islam. Not you know Islam, you become it. That's knowledge. It's one of the kaba'ir, one of the major sins to have so much knowledge and not use it or implement it. You know that? So we need to start doing this, you know, and it starts with parenting, it starts with each other, reminding each other, not looking down at each other. Al-mu'minu miratul mu'min. The believer is a mirror of another believer. And khalas, and we work our way forward together. Slowly, surely, slowly, surely. There's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be issues. Shaitan's going to use ego and arrogance and problems amongst you lot. We understand what Shaitan's trying to do. Simple as that. So, you know, we need to man up, we need to woman up, and we need to find our position in life and see what we want to do. So have a focus, have a goal. Obviously don't plan your life. If you do it in pencil, so you can rub it out, because Allah is the best of all planners. But you say if you're going to be an engineer, be an engineer for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you be a doctor for the sake of Allah. Saving a life is like saving the whole of humanity.